In the fading twilight of the 17th century, a man stumbled through the dense, unforgiving jungles of Central America. His name was Avendano, a Spanish monk whose feet bled through the raw earth, whose body was weak from hunger, and whose soul was battered by the cruel weight of failure. He had once been sent on a mission of great ambition, a mission to persuade the last of the mighty Mayan kings to bow before the might of the Spanish crown, to embrace a new faith and a new order. But now, as he trekked barefoot through the jungle, he was not a conqueror, nor a missionary of divine power. He was a broken man, fleeing from the very people he had hoped to convert. His journey had been one of desperation. His men, too, were mere shadows of their former selves, their faces marked by the sharp thorns of the forest and their feet torn apart by jagged flint. It had been days, perhaps weeks, since they had last tasted fresh water, and the oppressive heat of the tropics was a constant weight on their chests. But as they reached the crest of a hill, something caught their eye. A shape rising from the forest, towering and ancient, its stone steps crumbling beneath the weight of centuries. It was a pyramid, but not just any pyramid. It was a monument to an ancient power, a city that had once ruled over vast swathes of land, stretching far beyond the horizon. This was no mere settlement. This was the heart of a civilization that had flourished for centuries, and now lay in ruin. Avendano, with his dwindling strength, made his way toward the ruins. His men, too weak to follow, stayed behind as he approached the monumental structure. And there, in the crumbling remnants of stone, he saw what had once been a grand city. Small cloisters, living rooms, and arches stood where the grandeur of a civilization had once taken form. These structures were not just remnants of a forgotten time. They were the echoes of an empire whose voice had been silenced by the passage of time. The sheer scale of the ruins before him was almost too much to comprehend. These were not the small, humble dwellings of a few scattered tribes. No, these were the remnants of a civilization that had built cities to rival the ancient capitals of the old world. A city that had once stood as a testament to the might of its people, a people whose names had long since been lost to history. What Avendano did not know, standing amidst the ruins, was that he had just stumbled upon the great Mayan city of Tikal, a city that had once ruled a vast empire, a civilization whose reach stretched across the Yucatan Peninsula deep into the heart of Central America. For 7 centuries, Tikal had been a shining beacon of Maya civilization, a city of unmatched power and beauty. But that was not the world Avendano saw before him. By the time he laid eyes on the ruins, the Mayan civilization had already collapsed into a shadow of its former self. The invaders had come, bringing with them not only weapons, but diseases that would decimate the population. Smallpox had ravaged the once thriving cities of the Maya. The Spanish conquistadors had followed, using their guns, swords, and war dogs to crush any remnants of resistance. The Maya fought back, but they were fighting a losing battle, one that would eventually see their cities abandoned and their monuments left to crumble into the earth. As Avendano gazed upon the ruins, he could not have known that the empire that had once built these mighty pyramids had already fallen. Tikal, along with the rest of the Mayan world, had been abandoned. The lush jungles that had once been teeming with life now held only echoes of a lost past. The great stone pyramids, towering above the canopy, were slowly being swallowed by the relentless force of nature. Tikal had not fallen overnight. It was not the result of a single battle or a single invader. No, the fall of Tikal and of the Maya was a long, slow decay, a series of small wounds that ultimately led to the death of a civilization. Over the centuries, war had taken its toll. The cities of the Maya had waged constant warfare against one another, vying for dominance and power. But war alone did not bring about their downfall. The Maya had also faced environmental challenges that would prove to be their undoing. The land they relied upon for sustenance had been ravaged. Deforestation, caused by the constant cutting down of trees for agriculture and construction, had left the land barren. The soil, once fertile, became depleted and incapable of sustaining the growing population. The Maya, in their brilliance, had developed intricate systems for managing water, but even these could not withstand the pressures of a society at its breaking point. As the climate shifted, droughts began to plague the region, causing crops to fail and further exacerbating the struggles of the Maya. The people of Tikal, once the proud rulers of an empire, were now at the mercy of nature, and it was a mercy that came too late. Avendano, standing in the ruins of Tikal, could not have known that the city had once been home to a population of up to 90,000 people. He could not have known that at its height, Tikal had been one of the most powerful cities in the Mayan world, a city that had expanded its empire through conquest, diplomacy, and trade. All he could see before him were the ruins, the broken stones, the shattered columns, the crumbling pyramids. And yet, despite the ravages of time, there was something hauntingly beautiful about the ruins. The grandeur of the city, now lost to the jungle, still clung to the stones. The power of the Maya, still felt in the air, lingered in the shadow of the pyramids. The blood of a once great civilization still stained the earth beneath Avendano's feet. It was here, in this forgotten city, that the true mystery of the Maya lay. What had happened to the Maya? What had caused their fall? How had a civilization that had once been so powerful, so advanced, been brought to its knees? These were questions that would remain unanswered for centuries, as the ruins of Tikal stood silently in the jungle, waiting for the world to remember. Before we dive deeper into the story of the Maya, let me take a moment to say, welcome to Empires Historical. If you enjoy stories of ancient civilizations, their rise and fall, and the mysteries that lie beneath the surface of history, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support will help us continue to bring you more captivating tales of the empires that shaped our world. Now, let's continue this journey into the heart of the Maya and uncover the truth behind their fall. As we stand at the ruins of Tikal, it's almost impossible to fathom that this once thriving metropolis, with its towering pyramids, vast plazas, and intricate architecture, has fallen into oblivion. The Mayan Empire, once the pinnacle of advanced civilization in the Americas, now lay abandoned, its cities overtaken by the relentless force of nature. The forest had reclaimed its dominion, the stone temples and monuments slowly crumbling back into the earth, their purpose lost to the ages. But the story of the Maya did not end in Tikal. It was not a singular tragedy confined to one city, nor a death brought about by a single blow. No, the fall of the Maya was a collective tragedy, a slow unraveling of a society that had once reached the height of sophistication, only to collapse under the weight of its own ambitions and environmental missteps. This was the tragic symphony of a civilization that rose and fell not in a single dramatic moment, but through a series of fateful decisions that sealed its fate. To understand the fall of the Maya, we must look not only at the external forces, the conquest of the Spanish, the violent warfare between rival city-states, but at the internal stresses that tore the very fabric of Maya society apart. The Maya had long been masters of their environment, but their very success had sown the seeds of their destruction. The rapid growth of their population, the demands of an ever-expanding empire, and the relentless need for resources to fuel their cities and military campaigns created pressures that even their ingenuity could not overcome. The Maya were, above all else, a people of the land. Their cities were intricately linked to the environment around them, their very existence depending on the delicate balance of nature. They built grandiose temples, massive pyramids, and elaborate palaces, but all of these required vast resources. Forests were felled to clear space for agriculture, while the great stone buildings demanded the quarrying of limestone and the cutting of trees for fuel. At first, this exploitation of the land seemed to be sustainable. The Maya built an impressive system of irrigation to funnel water into their cities, and they developed an advanced agricultural system to support their growing population. But as time wore on, the land began to show the strain of constant use. The soil, once rich and fertile, became exhausted. The trees that once shaded the land were gone, leaving the soil vulnerable to erosion. The water systems, strained under the weight of a burgeoning population, began to falter. And then came the droughts, long, unrelenting periods of dryness that plagued the Yucatan Peninsula. It was here that the Maya, so attuned to the rhythms of the earth, found their knowledge insufficient. The water they had once relied upon to sustain their cities began to disappear. The great reservoirs that had been built to catch the rainwater were no longer enough to quench the thirst of the population. Crops withered, famine set in, and the great cities of the Maya began to crumble under the weight of their own failure to adapt. But even more than the environmental collapse, it was the political and social stresses that would prove to be the most devastating. The Maya were not a unified empire, but rather a collection of city-states, each vying for power and resources. In their efforts to maintain dominance, these city-states waged incessant wars against one another. At first, these conflicts were contained, small-scale skirmishes meant to assert dominance and secure resources. But as the years went on and the resources became scarcer, the wars became more intense and destructive. Cities that had once been allies became enemies, and the Maya began to fight not just for land and wealth, but for survival. Tikal, once the undisputed center of Maya power, found itself embroiled in a long and brutal war with its rival city, Calakmul. These wars of attrition drained the resources of both sides, weakening them both politically and militarily. What had once been a thriving, flourishing civilization now teetered on the brink of collapse, as the effects of war, famine, and environmental devastation took their toll. The Maya, despite their advancements in science, mathematics, and astronomy, could not escape the consequences of their own actions. As the city-states fragmented, so too did the cultural unity that had once defined them. The great ceremonial centers, once the heart of Maya life, were abandoned. The grand pyramids, once symbols of divine power, were left to crumble. And the writing, the intricate, beautiful hieroglyphs that had once recorded the history, achievements, and knowledge of the Maya began to fade from the walls. The arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century did not mark the beginning of the end for the Maya. It was merely the final chapter of a long, slow decline. By the time the conquistadors landed on the shores of the Yucatan Peninsula, the great Maya cities had already been abandoned for centuries. The Spanish, with their weapons and diseases, did not bring about the Maya's collapse. They merely swept in and claimed the ashes of what had once been a glorious civilization. Yet in the ruins of Tikal and the other Maya cities, there remains a lesson for us all. The Maya were not simply victims of their environment or external invaders. They were, in many ways, victims of their own success. Their brilliance in architecture, mathematics, and astronomy was unmatched. But it was this very brilliance that led them to push the limits of their environment without understanding the long-term consequences. They built their cities, their empires, and their civilization on the fragile balance of nature. And when that balance faltered, so too did they. As we explore the ancient city of Tikal, we are reminded of the frailty of human ambition. The grandeur of the pyramids and the stone carvings may stand for centuries, but they are no match for the forces of nature and time. The Maya were a people of profound wisdom, but they were also a people who, in their search for greatness, overlooked the very foundation of their existence, the earth beneath their feet. If you find the story of the Maya's rise and fall as captivating as I do, don't forget to subscribe to Empires Historical. Your support allows us to continue bringing these powerful tales of ancient civilizations to life. The Maya, like so many others, remind us that greatness is fleeting, and even the most brilliant empires are not immune to the tides of time. Stay with us as we continue to uncover the stories of empires lost to history. In the dense heart of Central America, under the heavy canopy of ancient trees, lay a world forgotten by time. A world where great pyramids once touched the sky and stone monuments spoke of the gods' eternal glory. The Maya, a people of unmatched brilliance, had carved their civilization into the very landscape itself. Their empire stretched across the Yucatan Peninsula, into Guatemala, Belize, and beyond, a network of city-states whose political and spiritual influence reached every corner of their world. The Maya were builders, mathematicians, astronomers, poets, and warriors. They understood the heavens as few other civilizations ever had, and they built cities that, for centuries, would stand as a testament to their ingenuity and vision. But like all empires that rise, the Maya, too, were bound by the laws of fate. Their greatness, their power, and their beauty would eventually be consumed by the very forces that had made them great. The fall of the Maya was not a single event, nor was it the result of one moment of weakness. It was a slow, inevitable unraveling, a tragic and beautiful collapse that spanned centuries, driven by forces both external and internal. Their cities, once teeming with life, would one day stand silent, their towering pyramids now overrun by the very jungle they had once conquered. As the Maya began to rise, they did so with a vision that sought to conquer the very landscape itself. Their cities were not mere clusters of huts and primitive structures. They were masterpieces, grand testaments to the creative will of a civilization that believed itself invincible. Each city was a microcosm of their collective ambition, a symbol of their understanding of the world. The pyramids were not just structures of stone, they were cosmic symbols, representations of the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. They were meant to honor the gods, to create an earthly mirror of the divine order that governed the stars above. Their temples and palaces rose to the sky, while the plazas below bustled with life, marketplaces, festivals, and rituals where priests chanted to the gods and warriors gathered to plan their conquests. But the question remains, how did a civilization so mighty, so enduring, fall so completely? How did the mighty Maya, who had mastered the art of stonework and mathematics, who had mapped the stars with uncanny precision, allow their world to crumble into dust? The answer lies not in the enemy they could not see, but in the land they had tried to bend to their will. For all their mastery of architecture, their knowledge of the heavens, and their ingenuity in warfare, the Maya were still bound by the earth beneath their feet. And that earth, as much as they sought to dominate it, had a power of its own. The Maya built cities that stretched far and wide, each city competing for dominance, wealth, and prestige. But in their race for greatness, they failed to see the cost. Their cities, once shining jewels of civilization, became centers of competition and conflict. The Maya were not a single unified empire, but a collection of independent city-states, each vying for power and influence. These rivalries, once the fuel for growth and innovation, eventually became the very force that tore the Maya world apart. Tikal, once the beating heart of Maya civilization, was no stranger to war. For centuries, it had held sway over the region, its rulers commanding vast armies that expanded the city's influence far beyond its borders. But Tikal's rise came with a price. War was a constant companion, and the thirst for power grew insatiable. The city-state found itself embroiled in endless conflicts with its neighbors, each war leaving behind scars, not just in the land, but in the people. These wars, although initially limited to small skirmishes, gradually escalated as the Maya cities began to turn on one another. The war between Tikal and Calakmul, a rival city-state to the south, would come to define the Maya conflict. Calakmul, once a subordinate ally of Tikal, began to grow in strength and power, challenging Tikal's dominance over the region. The two cities waged a bitter and protracted struggle for supremacy, each seeking to break the other's hold on the Maya lowlands. It was a war of attrition, fought not just with weapons, but with diplomacy, alliances, and religious symbols. As Tikal and Calakmul fought, other cities in the region began to grow disillusioned with their constant conflict. The Maya, once united by a shared culture and religion, began to fragment. The political alliances that had held the Maya world together started to fall apart, replaced by infighting, betrayal, and shifting loyalties. In the end, no city would emerge victorious. Instead, all were left weakened, their resources drained by decades of endless warfare. And then, as if to add insult to injury, the very land that had sustained the Maya began to betray them. The deforestation of the Yucatan Peninsula, once lush and fertile, became an existential crisis. The Maya, in their need for resources to fuel their cities, had cut down the forests to build their temples and palaces, to make space for their growing population, and to produce the food that would sustain them. The once dense jungles began to recede, replaced by barren hillsides and eroded soil. The land that had once been a source of wealth now became a liability, unable to support the booming population. But the greatest threat to the Maya came from a force they could not control: the climate. The region began to experience prolonged droughts, and the once reliable rainfall that had sustained the Maya's agriculture began to dwindle. The great reservoirs that had once collected water for the cities began to dry up. Crops withered. Famine spread, and the great cities of the Maya began to crumble, unable to feed their people. The once thriving marketplaces became desolate, the temples silent. The heart of Maya civilization began to wither, and the empire that had once seemed invincible fell into decline. The Maya had been brilliant, but they had been too ambitious. In their pursuit of greatness, they had neglected the delicate balance between civilization and nature. Their cities, their armies, their art, all of it had been built on the fragile foundation of the earth. And when that foundation began to crack, so too did their world. As the Maya continued to struggle under the weight of their own conflicts and environmental crises, Their once thriving cities fell silent, consumed by the very forces they could no longer control. The Maya had once commanded the land, using it as a canvas upon which to paint their greatness. But now the land itself had become a witness to their decline. The soil that had once supported their vast cities, where the blood of countless rulers and warriors had been spilled in ritual and battle, was now barren and exhausted. The forests that had once provided them with timber for their temples and palaces, with resources for their agriculture and crafts, were disappearing. The once vibrant jungles were becoming nothing more than skeletal remains, stripped bare by the constant demands of an ever-expanding civilization. The deforestation was not just an environmental concern. It was the very foundation of Maya society, slowly unraveling. The Maya, masters of the land, had overlooked the fragility of that land. The balance they had once struck with nature had been broken, and the consequences were dire. The soil, once fertile and rich, had been stripped of its nutrients, leaving the Maya unable to feed their growing population. The water systems they had so carefully constructed began to fail as the forest that protected the water evaporated, and the rivers that had once flowed through their cities began to dwindle. It was at this critical juncture that the forces of nature, once considered an ally to the Maya, turned against them. The rains that had always nourished their crops and filled their reservoirs began to vanish. The Yucatan Peninsula, which had been blessed with a reliable climate for centuries, now faced a long and punishing drought. Water became a luxury, a commodity that could no longer be taken for granted. The reservoirs that had once supplied the cities with water dried up, and the crops that had fed the people withered in the parched earth. The very foundation of the Maya way of life was being shaken. The once thriving marketplaces, the lifeblood of Maya commerce, were deserted as famine began to take hold. The once bustling cities were now ghost towns, with their grand temples and plazas filled with the silence of death. What had once been the heart of a thriving civilization now lay in ruins, a testament to the Maya's hubris and their inability to adapt to the changing world around them. But even as the Maya's cities fell, the story of their collapse was not just one of nature's wrath or the brutality of war. It was also a story of a society that had reached the limits of its own ambition. The Maya, like all great civilizations, had risen on the strength of their creativity, their vision, and their capacity for adaptation. But in their pursuit of greatness, they had failed to see the dangers of overreach. They had built too much, too quickly, without fully understanding the price they would eventually pay. And so, the Maya fell, not with a single dramatic event, but through a slow and inevitable process of decline. Their cities were abandoned one by one, their rulers displaced by the weight of their own failure. What had once been a powerful empire, capable of mapping the stars and building cities that stood as monuments to human ingenuity, was now little more than a shadow of its former self. Yet, even in the face of such devastation, the legacy of the Maya endures. Their knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and architecture lives on, a testament to the brilliance of a civilization that, at its peak, seemed invincible. The ruins of Tikal, Copan, and the other Maya cities continue to stand silent but proud, as a reminder of what was lost, and of the lessons that can be learned from their rise and fall. The story of the Maya is one of both triumph and tragedy, of a civilization that reached for the stars, but ultimately fell victim to the very forces it had sought to control. It is a story of ambition, of hubris, of the delicate balance between civilization and nature, and of the consequences of failing to recognize that balance. It is a story that echoes through the ages, a warning to all who would seek to build something that lasts, that even the greatest of civilizations can crumble when they forget the price of their greatness. In the vast expanse of the Yucatan Peninsula, where the air is thick with humidity and the sound of cicadas fills the jungle, there remains a haunting reminder of the greatness that once was. The ruins of the Maya, scattered across the landscape like the fragments of a forgotten dream, tell the story of a civilization that reached for the stars, only to fall back to the earth in a slow, painful descent. These ruins, their stones weathered by centuries of time, still echo with the whispers of the past. Of a people who dared to build empires and monuments to eternity, only to have them consumed by the forces they could neither predict nor control. The Maya were masters of their world, their minds as sharp as the obsidian tools they wielded, their knowledge of the heavens and the earth unparalleled in the ancient world. They mapped the stars with such precision that even today, modern astronomers marvel at the sophistication of their calculations. Their cities were not mere collections of buildings. They were works of art, expressions of their devotion to the gods and their understanding of the universe. The pyramids, rising like colossal mountains from the earth, were both temples to the divine and symbols of Maya power. Each stone was laid with purpose, each structure a reflection of their cosmological vision. Yet, despite their brilliance, the Maya were not invincible. They, too, were subject to the same forces that have always shaped the rise and fall of civilizations: ambition, war, nature, and time. Their cities, once teeming with life, eventually fell silent. Their towering pyramids no longer a testament to the gods, but to the passing of an age. The forests, which once provided the wood for their temples and the crops that sustained their people, were cut down to fuel the flames of their ambition. The great rivers, which had once flowed freely through the land, began to dry up, their waters no longer enough to quench the thirst of a growing civilization. The Maya had once been a people who had conquered nature, who had shaped it to their will, carving cities out of the jungle and mapping the stars. But in the end, nature would prove to be the one force they could not control. The rains, which had once nourished their crops and filled their reservoirs, began to fail them. Droughts, long and unforgiving, struck the Yucatan Peninsula with a vengeance, and the once fertile land became barren and dry. The Maya, who had built their cities on the foundation of the earth, found themselves betrayed by the very land they had sought to conquer. In their desperation, the Maya turned inward. The rivalries between their great city-states, once the engines of their growth, now became the seeds of their destruction. Tikal, once the heart of the Maya world, found itself at war with its greatest rival, Calakmul. The two cities, locked in a struggle for dominance, bled each other dry. Armies marched across the land, leaving behind a trail of death and destruction. The blood of warriors, once spilled in the name of conquest, now stained the earth. But it could not revive the crops, could not fill the wells, could not turn the tides of fate. The wars, which had once been the lifeblood of the Maya, now became a curse. The once great cities, built with such vision and purpose, were now reduced to battlegrounds where blood was spilled not for glory, but for survival. The rulers, once revered as gods among men, now found themselves powerless in the face of the land's slow decline. The temples, once filled with the songs of priests and the prayers of the faithful, were abandoned, their stones now silent, their carvings slowly being overtaken by the relentless advance of the jungle. It is here, in the silence of the fallen cities, that the true tragedy of the Maya civilization becomes clear. They had risen to greatness, driven by a vision of the world that was both profound and beautiful. They had built empires and monuments that were the envy of the ancient world. Yet, in the end, it was their very greatness that led to their undoing. Their ambition, their desire to control the forces of nature, had blinded them to the fragility of the world they had built. They had pushed too far, too fast, without understanding the consequences of their actions. The Maya had once believed that the gods controlled the fate of the world, that their power was derived from their connection to the divine. But as their cities fell and their people suffered, it became clear that the true power lay not in the gods, but in the land itself. The earth, which had once been a source of wealth and prosperity, had turned against them. The Maya, who had once believed that they could shape the world to their will, now found themselves at the mercy of the very forces they had once tried to dominate. As the years passed, the once great cities of the Maya became nothing more than ruins, their stones slowly being swallowed by the jungle. The pyramids, once towering symbols of their power, now stood as silent sentinels, their grandeur hidden beneath a veil of vines and moss. The people, once proud and powerful, had disappeared, their cities abandoned, their culture forgotten by all but the few who would later rediscover their ruins. In the quiet of the jungle, the Maya's story lives on, not just as a tale of triumph, but as a warning. A warning that even the greatest civilizations, no matter how brilliant, no matter how powerful, are not immune to the forces of time. That greatness, if not tempered with humility and foresight, can lead to destruction. The Maya had reached for the stars, but in the end, it was the earth beneath their feet that claimed them. As we stand before the crumbling ruins of the once mighty Maya cities, we are faced with a paradox, the greatness of a civilization that reached its zenith, only to fall into decay and silence. The Maya, a people who had mastered the art of architecture, astronomy, and agriculture, now left behind only ruins and remnants. Silent witnesses to their rise and fall. The stone temples and pyramids, once symbols of their divine power and knowledge, have slowly succumbed to time, but their legacy is not lost. The echoes of the Maya still reverberate in the ruins they left behind, in the very stones that tell the story of their glory and their downfall. But the Maya are not simply a civilization that fell into obscurity. Their story, though tragic, holds profound lessons for us today. The Maya were not simply victims of external forces. Their downfall was not solely the result of invasion or disease. No, their collapse was far more complex. It was the result of an intricate interplay of ambition, environmental change, and the limitations of their own vision. The Maya were masters of the stars, but they could not see the fragility of the earth beneath their feet. As the Maya sought to expand their cities and empires, they believed they were masters of nature. They built grand cities, magnificent pyramids, and complex water systems. They shaped the land to suit their needs, carving canals, clearing forests, and cultivating the land. But in doing so, they failed to recognize the delicate balance of their ecosystem. The land that had once been lush and fertile began to deteriorate under the strain of overuse. The forests, which had provided timber and fuel, were cleared, leaving the land vulnerable to erosion. The soil, once rich and full of life, became exhausted, unable to sustain the growing population. It was not just the deforestation that led to the Maya's downfall. It was the broader ecological crisis that their own actions had set in motion. The agricultural systems that had once sustained them now faltered. The water systems, which had been the lifeblood of their cities, began to dry up. The rains, which had nourished their crops, became erratic, and the once reliable reservoirs were no longer enough to meet the needs of their people. Droughts, which had been a rare occurrence in the past, became more frequent and devastating. The Maya, who had once commanded the elements, now found themselves at the mercy of a climate they could not control. The wars between the Maya city-states, which had once been the source of their strength and unity, became a destructive force. Tikal and Calakmul, The two most powerful cities were locked in a bitter struggle for dominance. The wars drained their resources, weakening both sides. The endless conflicts left the cities in ruins, their armies exhausted and their people desperate. The once thriving cities became battlegrounds, where blood was spilled not for glory, but for survival. The alliances that had once held the Maya together now fractured under the weight of their own conflicts. The Maya, once united by a shared culture and religion, now turned on one another in a desperate bid for power. In the face of these crises, the Maya rulers could do little to stem the tide of decline. The kings and priests, once seen as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people, found themselves powerless against the forces of nature. The people, who had once revered their rulers, began to question their authority. The once sacred temples, which had been the center of Maya life, were abandoned. The gods, who had once been the source of power and guidance, were no longer able to protect the Maya from the challenges they faced. The final blow came in the form of the Spanish invasion. By the time the conquistadors arrived in the early 16th century, the Maya cities had already fallen into decline. The once great empire was a shadow of its former self, its people scattered and its cities in ruins. The Spanish, armed with guns and steel, quickly conquered what remained of the Maya. They brought with them disease, which ravaged the already weakened population. The Maya, who had once built an empire that stretched across the land, now found themselves subject to a new and foreign power. Yet, despite the destruction wrought by the Spanish, the legacy of the Maya has not been completely erased. Their achievements in mathematics, astronomy, and architecture continue to inspire awe. The ruins of Tikal, Copan, and other Maya cities stand as a testament to their greatness. The intricate carvings, the soaring pyramids, and the elaborate stelae tell the story of a people who reached for the stars, only to be brought low by their own limitations. In the quiet ruins, the Maya's story is not one of failure, but of wisdom. They were a people who dared to build, to dream, and to reach beyond the horizon. They understood the cycles of time, the ebb and flow of life and death, and the delicate balance between human ambition and the forces of nature. But like all great civilizations, they too fell, not because of one single event, but because of the cumulative effect of their actions. They, like all of us, were caught in the web of their own ambitions. The Maya believed that time was cyclical, that the world would always return to its beginning. Perhaps in the end, this is the most profound lesson their civilization can teach us. That even the greatest empires, no matter how mighty, are not immune to the passage of time. Their rise and fall are a reminder that the world is constantly shifting and that no civilization can stand forever without paying the price for its ambition. The ruins of the Maya, though crumbling, still speak to us. They speak of greatness, of ambition, of the desire to conquer the heavens. But they also speak of humility, of the fragility of human civilization, and of the need to live in harmony with the earth that sustains us. The Maya reached for the stars, and in doing so, they built monuments that will endure for millennia. But they also remind us that, in the end, it is the earth beneath our feet that holds the power to shape our fate. With that, the story of the Maya comes to an end, but their legacy lives on. Their achievements are etched in the stones of their temples, their knowledge inscribed in the stars. And, as we look to the future, we must remember that the same forces that shaped the rise and fall of the Maya continue to shape our world today. The lesson of the Maya is clear. Greatness is fleeting, and the earth, no matter how much we seek to control it, is a force far greater than any civilization. In the deep heart of the Yucatan Peninsula, where the air is thick with the scent of tropical rains, and the earth hums with the pulse of ancient energy, The remnants of a once glorious civilization lie buried beneath layers of vines, stone, and time. The Maya, whose cities once reached for the heavens and whose knowledge surpassed even the stars themselves, now leave only echoes of their grandeur. Their temples, once brilliant against the sun, now stand as skeletal monuments, crumbling beneath the weight of centuries and forgotten by the world that had once gazed upon them in awe. But the Maya were not forgotten by the earth. No, the earth has a memory all its own, a memory that endures long after empires have risen and fallen, long after kings have been crowned and dethroned. The jungle has reclaimed what was once its own, and as we stand among the ruins of Tikal and Kopan, we are not merely witnesses to the remnants of an empire. We are participants in an ancient ritual, the ritual of remembering. For to understand the fall of the Maya is not merely to study the past, but to reflect on the fragility of all human endeavor. The Maya, in their time, were the architects of eternity. Their cities, their pyramids, their cities aligned with the stars, were expressions of a cosmic vision that defied the limits of the human imagination. They believed that the heavens themselves were an extension of the earth, and that the kings who ruled their cities were no mere mortals but divine figures, chosen by the gods to shape the world in their image. The Maya built their world not out of necessity, but from the impulse of creation itself. They sought to bend the very forces of nature to their will, to carve monuments in the stone that would endure for millennia. Their greatness was as inevitable as the rising sun, or so it seemed. But like all empires, the Maya, too, were prisoners of their own ambition. The world they built, this grand, intricate world, was not impervious to the forces of time, nature, and their own limitations. The brilliance of their architecture, their understanding of mathematics and astronomy, could not save them from the slow, inexorable decay of their society. The very forces that had once sustained their empire, the earth, the rivers, the forests, began to turn against them. The cycle of the Maya rise and fall is not one of sudden collapse, but of slow and creeping decay, like the erosion of stone over centuries. It is a cycle of too much, too fast. A civilization that stretched beyond its means, that consumed itself in the pursuit of glory. The first signs of this unraveling were subtle. The depletion of resources, the exhaustion of soil, the overuse of the land. The great cities, once centers of life and power, became increasingly isolated as rivalries between them intensified, tearing apart the fragile alliances that had once held them together. Tikal, once the heart of the Maya world, found itself at war with its neighbor, Calakmul, in a brutal and protracted conflict that drained the lifeblood of both cities. The war between these two giants was not merely a contest of arms, but a struggle for the very soul of the Maya world. Tikal, with its soaring pyramids and bustling plazas, was a city built on power, and it was in the very act of exerting that power that it began to erode from within. Tikal's rulers, once revered as divine figures, now found themselves embroiled in a conflict that would strip their city of its resources, its vitality, and eventually its place in the world. The wars between Tikal and Calakmul and the other Maya city-states were not just military engagements. They were battles for the future, for the very heart of Maya civilization. These wars reflected the same ambition, the same need for dominance that had driven the Maya to greatness in the first place. The Maya believed in their superiority, in their divine connection to the heavens, in their ability to shape the world in their image. But this belief, so central to their identity, became their undoing. They pushed too far. They sought too much. They failed to see that their cities were not invincible, that their rulers were not gods. While the Maya fought one another for dominance, the forces of nature, uninvited and unnoticed, began to reclaim the land they had once bent to their will. The Yucatan Peninsula, which had been lush and fertile, was slowly deforested by the endless demands of civilization. The timber needed for building, the land cleared for farming, the raw materials required to fuel an ever-growing empire. All of these contributed to the slow, relentless degradation of the environment. The soil, once rich and full of life, became exhausted. The land could no longer support the ever-expanding cities, the booming population, and the growing armies that demanded sustenance. The very ecosystem that had once nurtured the Maya began to turn against them. The rivers, which had once flowed freely and brought life to the cities, began to dwindle. The water that had been so abundant in their golden age was no longer enough to sustain the city's needs. The great reservoirs, which had once filled the city's plazas with cool, refreshing water, began to dry up. The droughts, once a rare occurrence, became more frequent, more severe. The rains that had once nurtured their crops, that had once been a dependable force in their lives, began to falter. The Maya, who had once understood the rhythms of the stars and the earth, now found themselves at the mercy of a changing climate. The once thriving agricultural systems that had fed the Maya began to fail. The crops, once abundant and vital, withered in the parched earth. The cities, which had once been filled with the sounds of bustling marketplaces and vibrant festivals, became eerily quiet. The once proud people of Tikal and Copan, who had once looked to the heavens for guidance, now turned their eyes downward, searching for answers in the earth, but finding none. As the Maya fought their wars and battled the elements, they also battled within themselves. The internal divisions between the city-states became more pronounced. The alliances that had once held the Maya world together began to fracture. The once shared culture, the once unified religious beliefs, now became points of division. The priests, once revered as the intermediaries between the gods and the people, were no longer able to provide the answers the people so desperately sought. The kings, once seen as divine beings, were now viewed with growing suspicion. The empire that had once been a beacon of civilization, a shining light in a dark world, now found itself plunged into darkness. The Maya had reached the pinnacle of civilization, their cities standing as testament to human ambition. Their grand pyramids, aligned with the stars and the rhythms of the earth, spoke of a culture attuned to the very pulse of the cosmos. They had risen, built empires, and left their mark on the world in ways that few could rival. But now, in the hollow silence that filled their once bustling plazas, it became painfully clear. The end was near. It was not the wrath of foreign invaders or the onslaught of diseases alone that brought about the fall of the Maya. Their collapse was born of a deeper tragedy, one rooted in their very successes. The great achievements of the Maya, their magnificent cities and towering pyramids, became their own undoing. The very things that had once given them power and pride, the cities, the agricultural systems, the wars, all began to disintegrate, leaving behind only the ruins of what once was. By the time the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, the Maya had already entered their twilight. The cities were no longer the thriving metropolises they had once been. Tikal, Copan, Calakmul, all had seen their power and influence erode. The long and brutal wars between the great city-states had drained their resources, leaving them vulnerable to the elements and to the divisions within. The once unified culture of the Maya had fractured, each city-state now a shadow of its former self, vying for dominance in a landscape that had already begun to crumble. Yet, even in their decline, the Maya clung to their identity, to the beliefs that had once sustained them. The temples, though abandoned and overgrown with vines, still bore the intricate carvings and glyphs that told the story of their divine connection to the cosmos. The pyramids, once towering symbols of their power, still reached for the sky, their peaks a reminder of the lofty ambitions that had once defined them. But even these symbols of grandeur were slowly being swallowed by the very jungle they had once tamed. As the Maya entered their final days, the loss of life was not merely physical. It was a loss of faith, of identity, of the very essence of what it had meant to be Maya. The gods, who had once been the center of their world, were now silent. The rituals, which had once brought order to their society and connected them to the divine, were abandoned. The kings, who had ruled with absolute power, found their thrones empty, their authority questioned, their kingdoms falling into ruin. In the face of this decline, the Maya were left with only the bones of their civilization. Their cities, once teeming with life, now stood as ruins, silent witnesses to the passage of time. The once vibrant marketplace was now a desolate wasteland, its stones cracked and weathered. The temples, once filled with the voices of priests and worshippers, now echoed only with the sounds of the wind and the rustling of leaves. The once proud monuments, which had been built to honor the gods and immortalize the kings, were now slowly being consumed by the jungle. But even in the face of such ruin, the Maya could not forget their legacy. Their knowledge, their wisdom, their art, all of these would not vanish into the earth without leaving a trace. The inscriptions on the stones, the carvings in the temples, the ancient books written in hieroglyphs, these were not just records of a lost civilization. They were the last whispers of a culture that had once been among the greatest of its time. Though the Maya had fallen, their spirit, their brilliance, would continue to inspire those who came after. The Maya believed in cycles, in the endless repetition of creation and destruction, life and death. They saw time not as linear, but as circular, ever returning to the beginning. In their cosmology, the end was never truly the end, but the start of something new. And perhaps in the ruins of Tikal and Copan, in the weathered stones and the overgrown temples, there lies a truth that the Maya understood all too well, that even in the face of collapse, there is the potential for renewal. Their cities may have fallen, but their spirit, their wisdom, their creativity, their understanding of the universe continues to live on. As the Spanish conquistadors arrived and claimed the land for their king, the Maya world was forever changed. The old ways were swept away, replaced by foreign customs, religions, and rulers. The cities were abandoned, the temples desecrated, the knowledge of the gods forgotten. But even as the world shifted beneath their feet, the Maya did not vanish. Their descendants, though scattered and often oppressed, continue to live on in the lands they once ruled. The fall of the Maya is a story not just of a lost civilization, but of the cyclical nature of human history. It is a story of triumph and tragedy, of ambition and humility, of greatness and collapse. The Maya built their world with vision and brilliance, but it was their very greatness that made their fall inevitable. Their story is a reminder that no empire, no matter how grand, can endure forever, and that the forces of nature, of time, and of human frailty are the true rulers of the world. The Maya, in their brilliance and their hubris, understood one thing above all, that time, like the stars they mapped, is both constant and ever-changing. And in the end, they became a part of that eternal cycle, their rise and fall, a reflection of the very forces that govern all civilizations. Their monuments, their cities, and their legacy may have been consumed by the earth, but their spirit, their vision, remains etched in the stone and the stars, waiting to be rediscovered. And so, as we walk among their ruins, we are reminded not only of what was lost, but of what remains. For the Maya were not just a civilization that fell, they were a civilization that reached for eternity. And in that, they succeeded. Their legacy, like the stars, endures, forever shining, ever present, and waiting to guide us through the ages. Amidst the dense jungles of Central America, where the heat clings to the skin and the air is thick with ancient memories, lies the crumbled remains of the Maya world. A world where empires once stood tall, their stone monuments defying the heavens, where the gods were honored with rituals as old as time itself, and where knowledge of the stars and the earth flowed like a river. The Maya, a civilization unparalleled in its brilliance, carved their legacy not just in stone, but in the very fabric of time. And yet, despite their magnificence, despite their astounding achievements, the Maya, like all civilizations, succumbed to the tides of history. The Maya civilization, at its zenith, was the pinnacle of human achievement. Their cities, such as Tikal, Palenque, and Copan, were masterpieces of architecture and engineering, designed to honor the gods and mirror the cosmic order. The pyramids soared into the sky, reaching for the heavens, while the plazas below were teeming with life, the air thick with the scent of incense and the rhythm of drums. Their knowledge of mathematics and astronomy was unmatched, allowing them to map the stars with a precision that even modern scientists marvel at. The Maya believed they were a chosen people, gifted with the divine knowledge of the universe. But no empire, no matter how mighty, can escape the laws of time. The Maya were not invincible. They were, like all who came before and after them, subject to the unforgiving forces of nature and human folly. Their civilization, built on a foundation of ambition and brilliance, began to crumble under the weight of its own success. The very things that made the Maya great, their cities, their wars, their agricultural systems, became the seeds of their destruction. The wars between the Maya city-states were, at first, the driving force behind their expansion. Tikal, the heart of the Maya world, waged wars against its neighbors, each battle an attempt to assert dominance over the region. These conflicts, though brutal, were often conducted with a sense of purpose, a belief that they were part of a divine plan. The rulers of the Maya believed themselves to be intermediaries between the gods and the people, their power derived not from their own strength, but from the divine will they embodied. They built their cities as temples to the gods, monuments to their own greatness, and symbols of their connection to the cosmos. Yet, as time passed, the wars between the city-states grew more destructive. What had once been a system of competition, driving innovation and growth, became a cycle of destruction that tore at the very fabric of Maya society. Tikal, once a mighty empire, found itself locked in a bitter struggle with its rival, Calakmul. The two cities, once allies, became bitter enemies, each seeking to dominate the other. The blood of warriors spilled in the name of conquest, but instead of forging unity, the wars deepened divisions, weakening both sides. As the Maya fought their wars, they also fought against the forces of nature that had once been their allies. The land that had supported them, the fertile soil, the lush forests, the rivers that had provided them with water, began to betray them. The very foundation of their empire, built on a delicate balance between civilization and nature, began to crack. The Maya, masters of the earth, now found themselves at the mercy of the very forces they had once controlled. The deforestation of the Yucatan Peninsula, driven by the demands of agriculture and the construction of cities, became one of the most visible signs of the Maya's decline. The once thriving forests, which had provided the timber for their temples and the wood for their tools, were stripped away, leaving the soil exposed and vulnerable. The forests that had once protected the land from erosion and provided the Maya with the resources they needed to sustain their cities were gone, replaced by barren hillsides and fields that could no longer support the population. The Maya, in their pursuit of greatness, had taken too much from the land, and now they were paying the price. But it was not only deforestation that doomed the Maya. The climate, which had once been a reliable partner in their agricultural success, began to change. Droughts, once a rare occurrence, became more frequent and severe. The once reliable rainfall, which had nourished the crops and filled the reservoirs, began to falter. The rivers that had once flowed through their cities began to dry up. The Maya, who had built their cities with the rhythm of the earth in mind, now found themselves at the mercy of forces they could not control. The earth, which had once been a source of life, had turned against them. The collapse of the Maya civilization was not a sudden event. It was not the result of a single catastrophe, but a slow, inexorable unraveling. The great cities that had once stood as monuments to human achievement were now empty. The temples, which had once echoed with the voices of priests and the sounds of ritual, were now silent. The people, who had once filled the streets with their vibrant culture, were gone. The Maya, in their attempt to conquer the world around them, had ignored the delicate balance that sustained their civilization, and now they were paying the price. The final blow to the Maya came with the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century. By the time the conquistadors landed on the shores of the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya had already begun to crumble. Their cities, once teeming with life, were now empty, their monuments in ruins. The Maya had been weakened by years of war and environmental collapse, and they were no match for the European invaders who brought with them guns, steel, and disease. The Spanish, armed with superior technology and a relentless desire for conquest, quickly overwhelmed the Maya. The once great civilization was reduced to rubble, its people scattered and enslaved. Yet even in the face of this destruction, the legacy of the Maya endures. Their knowledge of the stars, their understanding of time, and their mastery of architecture and mathematics continue to inspire awe and admiration. The ruins of Tikal, Copan, and the other Maya cities still stand, silent witnesses to a civilization that reached for the stars, only to fall back to Earth. The Maya may have been forgotten by the world, but they were never forgotten by the Earth. Their ruins, buried deep in the jungle, are a testament to their greatness and their tragic end. The Maya, despite their downfall, are a civilization that continues to resonate through history. Their rise and fall were as much a part of the natural order as the very cosmos they once mapped. The cities they built, though now reduced to ruins, stand as a testament to their brilliance, their ambition, and their tragic inability to reckon with the forces they could neither predict nor control. Their civilization, in its zenith, had grasped the beauty and the peril of life itself. The fragility of human existence wrapped within the monumental achievement of the Maya's understanding of time, nature, and the stars. As the Spanish conquistadors arrived and took their land, they erased much of what the Maya had built. But the deeper spirit of their civilization could not be wiped away so easily. The invaders, with their foreign gods and their new way of life, sought to impose their will upon a people whose cultural and intellectual heritage could not be so quickly displaced. The Maya, though scattered and diminished, did not vanish into oblivion. The whispers of their civilization, their knowledge, their art, their philosophical reflections on the cosmos, have never truly gone silent. In the face of destruction, the Maya did what civilizations often do. They retreated into memory, carried by the living traditions of their descendants. Though their cities were abandoned, Though their rulers were dethroned, their cultural legacy continued, passed down through generations. The knowledge that had once guided them in constructing their monumental cities, the understanding of their calendar, of the heavens, remained embedded in the very soul of their people. It would take centuries before the full scope of the Mayas' achievements would be recognized again. The rediscovery of their ruins by Western explorers in the 19th century brought their legacy into the light once more. Yet, even as their physical cities were lost to time, the essence of the Maya endures in the stories, the languages, and the very land they once ruled. Their downfall, like all great tragedies, holds an implicit lesson for humanity. It teaches that even the greatest civilizations are not immune to the forces of nature, to the limits of their own hubris. It is a story that echoes through the ages, reminding us of the need to respect the delicate balance between civilization and the world that sustains it. The Maya, who once reached for the stars, were ultimately undone by the earth itself. In their quest to conquer nature, they failed to recognize the fragility of their environment. And so, as their cities fell to ruin, they left behind not just the remnants of a lost world, but a stark reminder that the greatness of man, no matter how magnificent, is always dependent on the earth beneath his feet. In the ruins of the Maya, there is a paradox, a beauty found not only in their great accomplishments, but in their tragic fall. The magnificent pyramids, once the center of spiritual and political life, are now little more than weathered stones overtaken by the jungle. Yet, they still stand tall, like the monuments of a world long past. The stones that once echoed with the sounds of kings and priests now carry the weight of the lessons learned too late, that time waits for no one, and the earth is not to be tamed. The Maya believed that time was cyclical, that life, death, and rebirth were eternal, that each ending was merely a prelude to a new beginning. Perhaps they understood in some way that the fall of their civilization was inevitable, that, like all things in the cosmos, they too would be subject to the same forces of creation and destruction. The cities they built, the empires they forged, would one day fall, but their spirit, their knowledge, would endure in the hearts of those who came after them. Even as the Maya civilization faded from the world stage, their wisdom did not vanish. It lived on in the stories told by the descendants of those who survived the collapse, in the languages that were spoken, in the traditions that were passed down, in the ruins that remained as silent witnesses to a time when the Maya ruled the earth. The stones of their pyramids may be weathered, their temples may be overgrown with vines, but their spirit lives on in the knowledge they left behind. The Maya taught us that greatness is fragile, that ambition can blind us to the forces at play beyond our control. But they also taught us that there is beauty in the struggle, in the pursuit of knowledge, and in the creation of something greater than oneself. Their civilization may have collapsed, but their story endures. A story that continues to inspire and inform not just those who study the past, but all those who look to the stars and wonder, what is our place in the universe? Their monuments, though slowly crumbling, still reach upward, defying time and the ravages of history. The Maya may have fallen, but they did not disappear. In the heart of their cities, in the ruins that stand as silent sentinels to their once great civilization, the Maya continue to speak, not just of a past long gone, but of the enduring legacy of human ambition, of the power of the earth, and of the eternal struggle to understand the cosmos. In the heart of the ancient world, where jungles once hummed with life and the air was heavy with the scent of rain, the Maya once thrived, creating empires and monuments that whispered the secrets of the stars. Their civilization, one of the most sophisticated in human history, stood as a testament to the creativity, ambition, and brilliance of humankind. Their cities, built from the very stones of the earth, soared toward the heavens, their pyramids aligning with the stars themselves. But the land that had once nourished their dreams, the earth they had shaped to suit their grand designs, eventually turned against them, swallowing their greatness in the silence of forgotten cities. What remains now, buried beneath the heavy blanket of jungle and time, are the remnants of a once flourishing civilization, silent stones, weathered by centuries, and empty plazas that once reverberated with the voices of kings, priests, and common folk. The grandiosity of the Maya, the immense energy they poured into creating cities, temples, and monuments, has faded into the distance, consumed by the very forces they sought to control. Yet, even in their downfall, the Maya leave us with a haunting, poignant legacy, a story of ambition, of greatness, and ultimately, of tragic ruin. As the Maya built their world, they did so with an understanding of life and death that was beyond the comprehension of most civilizations. Their cities were not mere physical structures. They were sacred creations, aligned with celestial movements, designed to reflect the order of the universe. The pyramids, rising from the earth like mountains, were not just buildings, but symbolic representations of the passage from life to death, from the earthly realm to the divine. These cities, with their temples and plazas, their intricate carvings and sacred inscriptions, were designed to mirror the heavens themselves, placing human beings at the center of a cosmic order that stretched from the stars above to the earth below. In their prime, the Maya saw themselves as masters of the earth, capable of bending the world to their will. Their knowledge of the stars and the movements of the heavens was unparalleled, their understanding of time itself so precise that they could predict celestial events with an accuracy that still astonishes us today. The Maya were creators, not just of cities, but of worlds. Worlds that were, in their eyes, reflections of the divine. They believed that through their works, through their rituals, and through their understanding of the cosmos, they were forging a lasting connection to the gods themselves. But this connection, this delicate balance between humanity and the divine, was fragile. The Maya, for all their greatness, were bound by the same forces that govern all human civilizations: the passage of time, the impermanence of life, and the inevitable decay of all things. In their quest to build a lasting legacy, the Maya overreached. They carved their cities into the land, clearing vast swaths of jungle, cutting down trees to fuel their construction and their agricultural expansion. They built temples and pyramids to honor the gods, but in doing so, they failed to honor the land itself, the very land that had sustained them. And so, as their cities grew larger, as their population swelled, the earth beneath their feet began to crack. The soil, once rich and fertile, began to deplete. The forests, once a source of abundance, were felled, leaving the land vulnerable to erosion. The water that flowed through their canals, nourishing their crops, began to dry up. The Maya, in their ambition to conquer nature, had unwittingly set in motion the slow unraveling of their civilization. The first signs of trouble were subtle: a crop failure here, a prolonged drought there. But over time, these signs became more pronounced, more impossible to ignore. The great cities that had once been centers of life and power now began to crumble, their rulers unable to stem the tide of destruction that was slowly sweeping across their world. The wars between the Maya city-states, once fueled by a desire for expansion and dominance, became a struggle for survival. Tikal, the heart of Maya civilization, found itself locked in a bitter and protracted conflict with its great rival, Calakmul. The two cities, once allies, now bled each other dry, their resources depleted by the endless wars. The great cities of the Maya, which had once stood as symbols of their power, began to falter under the weight of their own ambition. As the Maya fought against each other and against the forces of nature, they also faced the growing realization that they could no longer control the world around them. The climate, once a predictable force that nourished their crops and filled their reservoirs, began to turn against them. Droughts became more frequent, and the once reliable rains became erratic, their timing unpredictable. The Maya, who had once shaped their world in the image of the divine, were now at the mercy of forces beyond their control. The once great cities, once filled with the sound of life, became silent, their people scattered, their rulers lost in the growing darkness. The collapse of the Maya civilization was not sudden. It was a slow, creeping death, one that stretched across centuries. The great cities, like Tikal and Copan, once teeming with life, slowly emptied as the Maya people fled to the countryside, searching for food and water. The temples, once centers of worship and power, were abandoned, their sacred carvings left to be overtaken by the jungle. The rulers, once seen as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people, were overthrown, their authority questioned, their cities reduced to rubble. But even in the face of such devastation, the Maya did not disappear. Their knowledge, their culture, their art, all lived on in the memory of those who survived. The Maya may have lost their cities, their monuments, and their empire, but their legacy remained, etched in the stone, in the stars, and in the hearts of their descendants. The Spanish conquistadors, arriving in the 16th century, could not erase the memory of the Maya. The world they found, though already in decay, still carried the mark of the Maya's greatness. The ruins of Tikal, Copan, and other cities stood as silent witnesses to the achievements of a lost civilization, while the descendants of the Maya carried with them the stories, the knowledge, and the wisdom of their ancestors. The Maya had fallen, but they had not been forgotten. As the years passed and the Spanish conquistadors solidified their control over the lands once ruled by the Maya, their empire was erased. But the essence of the Maya could not be so easily extinguished. The stone temples that had once echoed with the hymns of priests, the plazas where people had gathered to trade, to celebrate, and to worship, all fell silent. Yet, amidst this silence, the Maya legacy lingered in the bones of their cities and in the hearts of their people. Their culture, though scattered, refused to be forgotten, finding new life in the stories told by the descendants of those who had survived. The Maya civilization may have crumbled under the weight of time, war, and environmental collapse, but their influence, their knowledge, and their understanding of the world have endured. The world may have moved on, but the wisdom they left behind still carries a profound message, one that we, in the modern world, would be wise to heed. The downfall of the Maya stands as a reminder that no civilization, no matter how advanced or powerful, can stand forever if it does not live in harmony with the forces of nature. The Maya, with their towering pyramids and celestial knowledge, had believed they could bend the earth to their will, but in the end, it was the earth that claimed them. They were masters of time, of mathematics, and of the stars, but they failed to understand that their true strength lay in their ability to live in balance with the land, with the environment that sustained them. And when that balance was broken, when they pushed too far, too quickly, the foundation of their civilization began to crack. The echoes of the Maya, however, are not solely a tale of collapse. In their achievements, in their understanding of the cosmos and the intricacies of time, the Maya left behind a legacy that continues to influence us today. their calendar, their architecture, their art. All of it was a reflection of a deep understanding of the cycles of life, of death, and of rebirth. The Maya believed that time was cyclical, that all things had a beginning and an end, and that every end was merely the start of something new. This belief is woven into the very fabric of their civilization, and it is a belief that perhaps offers the most profound lesson of all. In the ruins of their cities, there is both a beauty and a sadness. The stone that once gleamed in the sunlight is now weathered, cracked, and worn. The grandeur of their temples, which once reached for the heavens, is now overshadowed by the very jungle they had once tamed. But even as these monuments crumble, they continue to speak. They speak of a people who dared to dream, to reach beyond what was known, to build a world that was both a reflection of the divine and a testament to human achievement. The Maya, in their wisdom, understood the fragility of life. They knew that empires rise and fall, that the gods control the fate of the world, and that human beings are but fleeting players in the grand cosmic drama. And yet, in their brief moment of glory, they reached for the stars, and in doing so, they created something timeless, something that continues to inspire and captivate us even today. Even though the Maya civilization fell, the spirit of the Maya cannot be extinguished. Their cities may have been abandoned, their kings dethroned, and their temples desecrated, but the knowledge they imparted to the world lives on. The ruins, though worn by time, still stand as monuments to their greatness. The Maya may no longer walk among us, but their legacy, like the stars they once mapped so perfectly, continues to shine. It is a reminder that in the end, it is not the empires we build that define us, but the wisdom we leave behind. The lessons of the Maya civilization, of ambition, of hubris, of the need to live in harmony with the earth, are lessons that we must learn if we are to avoid the same fate. The Maya reached for eternity, and in doing so, they left behind not only monuments of stone, but a testament to the resilience and fragility of human ambition. Their legacy is not just one of ruin, but of hope, a reminder that even in the face of collapse, there is beauty, there is knowledge, and there is the possibility of renewal. In the vast ruins of Tikal, in the silent remnants of Copan, and in the jungle-clad temples of the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya continue to speak. They speak through their art, their architecture, their mathematics, and their philosophy. They speak of a world that, though lost, is not forgotten. And they remind us that the greatness of humanity lies not in the monuments we build, but in the wisdom we pass down through the ages. For the Maya, their civilization may have ended, but their story is far from over. As long as the stars continue to shine, as long as the wind still whispers through the ruins, the Maya will live on. Not in the past, but in the future, guiding us toward a world where we, too, can learn from their triumphs and their failures. In the quiet aftermath of their once glorious existence, the Maya civilization lies in the shadows of its former greatness, its monumental cities abandoned, its pyramids no longer reaching for the heavens. The land that once teemed with the vibrancy of Maya life, now shrouded in the dense embrace of jungle and time, is all that remains. Yet, as the last whispers of their civilization fade into the silence of the centuries, one truth remains. The Maya may have vanished from the world stage, but their legacy is eternal, etched in stone and woven into the very fabric of human history. The downfall of the Maya was not a single dramatic event. It was a slow, relentless unraveling, stretching over centuries. At its heart was a fundamental imbalance, an imbalance between human ambition and the forces of nature. The Maya had built their empire, not just with stone and mortar, but with an unyielding belief in their place in the cosmos. They saw themselves as the masters of the earth, the keepers of knowledge, and the guardians of a world that was aligned with the divine. Their cities were not simply places of governance. They were sacred reflections of the celestial order, designed to honor the gods and secure the Maya's place in the eternal cycle of life and death. But in their pursuit of immortality, of making a lasting mark on the world, they overreached. As their cities grew, so too did their consumption of the earth's resources. Forests were felled, rivers dammed, and soil depleted. The land that had once nurtured them now began to betray them. The Maya had failed to recognize the fragile balance between civilization and nature, and in doing so, they set the stage for their own collapse. The first signs of trouble were subtle, whispers in the wind that grew louder as the years passed. Droughts, once rare, became more frequent, and the once fertile soil began to lose its vitality. The great reservoirs that had once sustained their cities during dry seasons began to run dry. Crops failed, food became scarce, and the once thriving population began to dwindle. But perhaps the most significant force that hastened their downfall was the escalating violence among their city-states. The Maya were never a unified people. They were a collection of independent kingdoms, each vying for power and dominance. The wars between these city-states, once fueled by a desire for expansion, became more brutal and more desperate, as each city fought not just for dominance, but for survival. The great city of Tikal, once the undisputed heart of Maya civilization, found itself locked in a deadly struggle with its longtime rival, Calakmul. The two cities, once allies, were now bitter enemies, their endless wars bleeding each other dry. Tikal, once a shining symbol of Maya power, was no longer able to defend itself against the onslaught of both internal strife and external forces. The temples, once resplendent with carvings and inscriptions, became silent monuments to a lost era. The rulers, once seen as divine figures, could no longer stem the tide of destruction. And as the Maya fought among themselves, the land that had once sustained them began to betray them in more ways than one. The forests that had provided them with timber and fuel were being stripped away, and the soil, once rich in nutrients, became barren. The vast agricultural systems that had once supported the burgeoning cities were now failing. The Maya had overextended themselves, both in their quest for dominance and in their exploitation of the land. It was in this moment of crisis, when the earth was no longer able to support them, when the rains became erratic, and when their enemies grew stronger, that the Maya turned inward. No longer able to conquer the earth, they sought refuge in the heavens. The temples, once dedicated to the gods of the earth, were now rededicated to the stars. The Maya believed that the heavens held the answers to their survival, and so they turned to the celestial bodies, seeking guidance in the stars that had once been their trusted allies. Yet, even the stars seemed to abandon them. The great astronomical knowledge that had once been their greatest asset now seemed useless in the face of an unforgiving world. The rains did not come, the rivers did not flow, the crops did not grow, and the people of the once great cities, now broken and disillusioned, scattered into the wilderness, seeking a life that was no longer to be found in the great pyramids of Tikal or Kopan. As the great cities of the Maya fell into silence, their once grand temples now overrun by the jungle, and their rulers forgotten. It seemed that the civilization had vanished into the annals of history. The stone monuments that once told the stories of their conquests, their gods, and their kings were now weathered and cracked, buried beneath layers of earth and time. But even as the Maya disappeared from the stage of history, their legacy endured. not in the form of cities and empires, but in the very knowledge they left behind, the lessons they imparted, and the wisdom that continues to echo through the ages. The collapse of the Maya civilization was not the end of their story. While their cities crumbled, their influence continued to reverberate in the lives of those who survived. The descendants of the Maya carried with them the knowledge of their ancestors, preserving their culture, their language, and their art, even as the world around them changed. The Maya may have fallen, but their spirit lived on, passed down through generations, who still honored the gods, the rituals, and the cosmic order that had defined their civilization. The Spanish conquistadors, upon arriving in the 16th century, found themselves stepping into a world that had already been shaped by the Maya. Though the Maya Empire was gone, the remnants of their civilization still haunted the landscape, from the ruins of Tikal and Copan to the intricate carvings and symbols that adorned their temples and palaces. The Spanish could not erase the memory of the Maya, nor could they erase the mark of their greatness. The ruins, though now abandoned and decaying, still stood as a testament to what had once been. Even in their destruction, the Maya left behind a story that could not be silenced. In the centuries that followed, the world would come to realize that the Maya were more than just a people who had once built great cities. They were a civilization that had unlocked the mysteries of the stars, who had developed an understanding of time and space that still astounds modern scholars. Their calendar, more accurate than anything that existed in Europe at the time, became a symbol of their mastery over the passage of time. Their knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and architecture continues to inspire awe and admiration today. The Maya, in their brief existence, had managed to touch the heavens, and even as their cities fell to ruin, the knowledge they imparted remained timeless. Yet, as much as the Maya had reached for the stars, their downfall serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of human ambition. The Maya believed that they could bend the world to their will, that through their knowledge, their power, and their rituals, they could conquer nature itself. In the end, it was the very forces they sought to control, the land, the climate, and the fragile balance of their ecosystem, that led to their undoing. The earth, which had once given them everything they needed, ultimately reclaimed what they had taken from it. The downfall of the Maya civilization, however, is not solely a cautionary tale of environmental destruction. It is also a reminder of the cyclical nature of history, of the inevitable rise and fall of civilizations. The Maya understood that time was cyclical, that all things had a beginning and an end, and that every end was the beginning of something new. In their belief, every cycle of life, death, and rebirth was a reflection of the larger cycles of the universe. In their destruction, the Maya fulfilled their own prophecy. Their civilization, once a shining beacon of human achievement, was now part of the natural order of things. The end of their civilization was not the end of their story. It was simply the beginning of a new chapter. The ruins of Tikal, Copan, and other Maya cities are not just monuments to a fallen civilization. They are symbols of resilience and endurance. Despite the destruction of their cities and the collapse of their empire, the Maya remain a living culture. Their descendants, though scattered, still carry the legacy of their ancestors in their hearts, in their art, and in their daily lives. The Maya may have been defeated, but their spirit, their knowledge, and their wisdom continue to inspire the world. The lessons of the Maya, about the balance between humanity and nature, about the need to understand the cycles of time, and about the importance of living in harmony with the earth, are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. As we look back on the Maya civilization, we are reminded that no civilization, no matter how great, can survive without understanding and respecting the natural forces that sustain it. The Maya were masters of the heavens, but they could not control the earth. They built great cities, but they failed to honor the land that made those cities possible. In their rise and fall, they leave us with a powerful lesson, that true greatness lies not in the monuments we build or the empires we create, but in our ability to live in harmony with the world around us, to understand the forces that shape our existence, and to pass down the wisdom of the ages to future generations. And so, as the stars continue to shine above, as the wind whispers through the ruins, the Maya continue to speak. Their story is far from over. Their legacy lives on in the ruins of their cities, in the knowledge they left behind, and in the hearts of those who remember them. The Maya may have fallen, but they will never be forgotten.